So my name is Yahaira, and we're going to be doing a read aloud tonight in Spanish. So here's the book that I'm going to be using, and the title of this book is ¿Qué cosas dice mi abuela? Dichos y refranes sobre los buenos modales. It was written by Ana Galan and illustrated by Pablo Pino. So here is the illustration. And some of the strategies that I like to use when reading books like these for the kids are definitely sticky notes. They're just easier to place on the book, and they're easier for the children to see as well. And it's just a quick jot down, something that we can remember, something that is important, and something that we want to emphasize to the kids as well. So here's the book. And this book, it's not very lengthy. It's definitely a picture book. So I would definitely use it for any of the lower elementary grade levels, 1st to 5th grade. But it really truly depends on the Spanish efficiency, is my assumption, whether they're English learners or Spanish learners as well. So here's the book. And then some of the other strategies that I also like to emphasize when I read, when I do a read aloud or just read a book in general, are I like to look at the front cover, the back cover, and kind of skim through the book. And some of the things that these strategies tell me might be the characters. They might give a brief summary if we take a look closely. So we can see here, for those of you who do know how to speak Spanish, the title has the word abuela, and abuela means grandmother in Spanish. So we can assume, or we can predict, that this book might have a majority of the part might emphasize on the grandmother, because we see her too on the cover. We also see 3 children. So one of them might be the narrator, or it might be told from a child's perspective as well. So some of those are inferences we can make, and we can share those when we read the book aloud as well. And then I also like to look at the back cover. So the back cover again has what we predict is the grandmother, and another little boy who we can predict might be the narrator. And it again has the title of the book, ¿Qué cosas dice mi abuela? Dichos y refranes sobre los buenos modales. And when we translate this to English, it just means the things that my grandmother says. And these are sayings about having good manners. So then the boy actually has a little bubble, which means he has a comment. So I would definitely share this with the kids too. And it says, Mi abuela tiene un refrán para cada ocasión. ¿La tuya también? So what this translates to is, my grandmother has a saying for every occasion, and then he's asking, does yours too, right? Does your grandmother have a saying for every occasion, like his grandmother has it? So there you go. And then I would also skim through the book. Obviously, you don't have to do this. This is preference. But I also like to skip through the book because, again, it shows me kind of who the characters might be and who maybe I should focus on first, or maybe the plot of the book too. It's not going to tell you exactly what the story is about, but it gives you a clue, and it gives you some key points on what to expect. And from skimming, we can see that the grandmother is on most of these pages, so we can assume and predict that the grandmother is a big focal point of the book. And again, we can share this with the children. This gets their minds working because they can relate to their own grandmothers, or they can relate to own family members as well. So I think that's a really good strategy for a read aloud, especially with younger kids. Younger kids, if we get them engaged, they'll definitely, sit throughout an interesting book. And also, just a quick, I want to share this out. The reason why I chose this book, first, because it's all in Spanish, and that's my first language. And second of all, my mom read this book actually, and my sister read this book, and they both really loved the book. So they, it really kind of reminds them of home, and it's just very, it hits home a lot because of the sayings of a grandmother. So I thought that was kind of cute, and I think I really appreciate the book because of that. So, okay, with nothing more to say, we're going to start. And again, I'm going to have these sticky notes on the side just in case. So, ¿Qué cosas dice mi abuela? Dichos y refranes sobre los buenos modales, by Ana Galan, illustrated by Pablo Pino. Here we have our first page, and again, we have our little boy. And it actually has it says, a mi sobrina Paula. So this book was meant for her niece. And it was also para Agos y Jesse por soñar conmigo. So it was meant for Agos and Jesse because they dreamt with her. And her mom. Y a mi mamá por sus dichos y apoyo incondicional. And she also wrote it for her mom because her sayings and her support were unconditional for her. So I think that's very sweet as well. It adds to the homey feeling. So let's start. Mi abuela siempre dice que buenas palabras y buenos modales abren puertas principales. Y seguro que tiene razón, porque ella sabe mucho. Todas las mañanas, antes de que vayamos a la escuela, comprueba que estemos listos y bien limpios. El aseo en la persona muchos bienes proporciona, dice. Después, ayuda a mi hermanito pequeño a abotonarse la camisa. Bien vestido, bien recibido. Cuando volvemos de la escuela, mi abuela se sienta con nosotros y nos ayuda con las tareas. Con el tiempo y la paciencia se adquiere la ciencia, le dice a mi hermana mayor, y a mí no deja de repetirme, estudiando con tesón, y al fin entra la lección. So here we can see, if we get close and we put this book closer, we can see Grandma kind of hogging over some of the kids, and we see some math symbols as well. So we can predict and we can say this out loud to the kids that she might be helping them out with homework. A mi hermana le gusta cantar en todo momento, hasta en la mesa. Al que come canta algún sentido le falta, dice mi abuela riendo. Luego mira a mi hermano, que tiene tanta hambre que parece que va a comerse el plato. Cuando te sientas a comer, los codos en la mesa no has de poner, le recuerda. Mis amigos siempre quieren venir a casa a comer porque mi abuela cocina tan rico. Quien comparte su comida no pasa solo la vida, dice. ¿Puedo repetir? Le pregunto con la boca llena. En boca cerrada no entran moscas, me corrige mi abuela, para que trague antes de hablar. ¿Podemos tomar un refresco, abuela? Preguntó. Agua corriente sana a la gente, me dice ofreciéndome un vaso de agua. Cuando terminamos de comer, quiero ir a jugar, pero me pasé la servilleta para que me limpie. Boca sucia no habla limpio, dice. A veces al jugar hablamos muy rápido y todos a la vez, y mi abuela nos recuerda, el hablar bien poco cuesta. Tan importante es saber hablar como saber callar y escuchar. ¡Cuidado! Dice mi abuela, no te subas a esa silla. Ay, 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 no la escuché. El que no oye consejo no llega a viejo, me dice poniéndome hielo en el chichón. And here the illustrations are great because we can kind of inference if the students don't know Spanish very well or are learning in the process of learning Spanish, we can see through grandma's reactions and her behavior as well as the child off the chair too. We can kind of assume what is happening. Mi abuela se pone muy seria si tratamos mal a nuestros amigos. Una cosa es ser sincero y otra cosa es ser grosero, dice, pero si decimos mentiras nos advierte, a quien mucho miente le huye la gente. And here we don't see, if it's too far away, we don't see grandma. But if we close in on it, we can see her through the window, and it looks like she's scolding the little boy. We can see it through their facial expressions that she might be scolding the little boy. Cuando le cuento que yo y mis amigos hicimos algo, mi abuela siempre me dice, el burro delante para que no se espante. Así me recuerda que tengo que decir mis amigos y yo. Y si ve que mi hermana le dice cosas al oído a alguien, exclama, secretitos en reunión, es mala educación. And then something important to note here is that if we translate this page specifically, it talks about the younger sister kind of whispering to the ear, and grandma is scolding them or reminding them that they shouldn't be talking and whispering and telling each other secrets, because that shows bad manners. So one thing I'd like to point out is that grandma has her hand on her hip. And this has happened before, actually. If we take, she uses the pointer finger on this one, sorry, on this page. So she's pointing with her finger, and that's very characteristic of somebody scolding, and that's a very cultural thing, in my opinion. So we see that finger again, right there, and we see the hand on the hip, which I didn't mention before, but we see the hand on the hip again and that finger. So I think those are cultural points that we can always point out to, again, get the kids engaged and so they can make connections, not only to grandparents, but maybe to their own parents or older siblings, any family members that might do the same thing when they're being told what to do. Mi abuela nos enseñó que no importa dónde vivas, en casa chica, gran hombre cabe. Ni cómo eres, ni de dónde vienes. De mal o buen aspecto, todos merecen respeto. Siempre nos recuerda que es muy importante decir por favor y dar las gracias. Al agradecido, más de lo pedido. Gracias. For this page, I would definitely point out some simple words. Again, it really depends on the age level this book is meant for and the group of children this book is being read to. But in this instance, I would definitely point out the two key words, which are por favor and gracias, please and thank you. A lot of people already know gracias and they might be used to it, but not a lot of people are familiar with por favor. And this is another key word for everyday interactions with other people. So I think knowing how to say gracias, but also knowing how to say por favor can be extremely important. Mi abuela nos anima a compartir nuestros juguetes con los demás. Quien mucho da, mucho recibe, dice, y no se cansa de repetir, es mejor dar que recibir. And this is a very common saying in English as well. So always making those connections between languages. If we have bilingual children, if we have English learners, Spanish language learners. So quien mucho da, mucho recibe, es mejor dar que recibir. So it's always better to give than to get, or to give than to receive. So that's something that's very common throughout cultures. So that's something I would definitely point out. And the pictures really show it too. The sharing, the giving, and the emotions that come with when giving. A veces vamos con ella a hacer compras y nos pide que no toquemos nada. Ver y no tocar se llama respetar. And again, we see the grandma's facial expressions and we see her finger again, her pointer finger there. Mi abuela nos enseñó que los buenos amigos son importantes. Quien a buen árbol se arrima, buena sombra le cobija. Y que debemos ser amables con todos. Haz bien y no mires a quién. Mi abuela me quiere tanto que hasta en la cama me quiere enseñar. A la cama no te irás sin saber una cosa más. And that's the end of our book. So I hope you enjoyed the book. I know I didn't use my sticky notes, but we'll use them for the following activity. So one thing that I really noticed about this read aloud, and again, that would really help language learners, that would definitely be cognates. I know the book is entirely in Spanish, and having these words can be really helpful. So a list that I came up with are words like patience, and we see patience. Give me one second. So, con el tiempo y la paciencia se adquiere la ciencia. So, with time and patience, you will acquire the science. So, some of the cognates that I see here are paciencia, and we can relate it to patience, and also ciencia, actually. Ciencia is science in Spanish. So, some of the other words I have are repeat, which is repetir in Spanish, or moment, which is momento, a plate, something as simple as a plate, which is plato in Spanish. So things like that, along with the illustrations, can really help the children identify the meaning of certain words. And also words using context, right? So if we see some of the pictures as well, we can definitely kind of infer. When we see here, después ayuda a mi hermano pequeño a abotonarse la camisa. So maybe these words might be a little bit more complicated for some of the kids, but just looking at the picture, we can see grandma's helping him button up that shirt. So we can inference that maybe abotonarse la camisa can be buttoning up a shirt, and that's exactly what it means. So we can definitely use words used in context, and cognates are really good for the book as well to find the definition for some of these books, or some of these words, sorry. So that's that. I hope you enjoyed the book. Like I said, I really, really love this book. I think it's definitely cultural in Hispanic culture, grandmothers are a big part of the family and they're a big part of the core, but it can also be cross-cultural too, because obviously grandmothers are not only important in Hispanic homes, it's cross-cultural as well. So definitely children can relate to sayings from adults, not only grandmothers. They can hear these sayings from parents or older siblings, and like I said, always relating to the context, to the illustrations. I loved the facial expressions from the grandmother, from the children. Some of the expressions from the children were like, oops, I did this, or oh no, what did I do, and stuff like that, like I should have listened. And that's basically the emphasis in the book, right? Listen to the grandmother, because she's wise and she will know about good manners, right? And always they do it for their own good, right? So that's something that they can definitely relate to. So that's it for tonight's read aloud, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.